Welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games, where Derek and myself just received some very exciting news, which I'll be filling you in on very, very shortly. But first, let's cut to the chase. It's Portugal versus Brazil. We're going to show you HGG cheer one more time, because there was a little mistake in the graphic a moment ago that indicated that Singapore had millions and millions of bits, which they don't. But there you go. One more time, there's all of the rewards. And if we turn the page now to the country leaderboard, United States, Netherlands, the United Kingdom, all been eliminated, but they are the top 3 teams. Ukraine and Norway close behind, though. They'll be playing up against each other in the final series of today.
They're just falling like flies in this series. The top 3 teams, as you said there in terms of cheer, already gone. United Kingdom in a pretty surprising series, I would say, that they felt pretty favoured going into it, somehow still losing to Hong Kong after what was, from where I was sat in the break room, seemed like a decently played game from Hong Kong's side.
Yeah, it was definitely the odd row. And again, I've got a question. That vicious fledgling seemed to make all the difference. Let's take a look, though, at this bracket that we're about to complete. It's going to be Portugal versus Brazil. Spain won this group after taking out both Portugal and Chile. And this is a mirror match. And as I said in the last series, sorry, a rematch, not a mirror match. And as I said in the last series, every single match coming up today is actually a rematch.
It is. And this might be not just a rematch, but a record-breaking series. Because I believe in the last series, Brazil versus Portugal, we got our longest game of Hearthstone in the global games in Odd Warrior versus Benedictus Priest. This time, we might be going for an even longer game of Hearthstone. Because what do we got, my friend?
We have Benedictus Priest versus Benedictus Priest.
This is
this is a first, right?
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever seen this in a competitive Hearthstone tournament.
I have not. There was the fear a while ago when Quest Benedictus Priest was making the rounds a little bit. A few people were playing it, and there were whisperings of like the 2-hour game that hit the turn limit or whatever.
I played it once on ladder. I hit the turn limit once on ladder in a Quest mirror.
Yeah, I mean, we're not at that quite yet. We have one game first, but it is a game 2, so we are definitely going to be having our Benedictus Priest mirror, which is going to be testing in every sense of the word.
Let's take a look at the picks and bans for this series, though. Oh, why didn't they ban Priest, Derek? This is going to be so interesting. Rogue's banned outright. Yeah, same old, same old. It's going to be very similar to what we saw last week, I'd imagine.
Both Priests being nabbed as the first or second pick. It doesn't make any difference in the pick and ban phase. Straight away for both teams, just realizing, you know what, it's good against the aggro decks because the core is still just Control Priest. And then against these slower fatigue matchups, it has infinite fatigue. You never ever win on fatigue unless an immovable force meets, an unstoppable force meets an unmovable object of Benedictus versus Benedictus.
It's not quite as bad as the old Quest Priest, because that deck didn't have a win condition. Its win condition was outlast the opponent. At least there's Anduin, at least there's Mind Blast, at least there are things that can happen.
It might just be Mind Blast Anduin to finich the game in like 20 minutes. It could happen.
It could. Wishful thinking there, but here we go. Now we can show you. First up, it's going to be Death Rattle Hunter for Race versus Malagas Druid for Dr. Boom. And then we have the Benedictus Madness. That's going to be game number 2.
And then it gets a little bit more normal in the next game. Odd Paladin versus Control Lock. Very nice matchup for Portugal on the Control Warlock. I would imagine you just have too much stall, too much board clear. I believe they won that matchup against Spain yesterday as well, before they lost inevitably to Spain as well, with some Void Laws being pulled out and all that stuff.
That's right, that's right.
It does then, it's a close series actually. It kind of goes here and there either way. You've got Shadowhawk Shaman versus Odd Warrior for Brazil versus Portugal, which should be a pretty good matchup for Brazil, I would imagine. On the Shadowhawk, difficult to be pulling that one back, even with Azalina nonsense that can occur.
Brazil again, the undefeated team in the Swiss, the only undefeated team in the Swiss. It would be a great shame for them to fall at this last hurdle.
That would have meant the only team they've lost to in the global games would have been Portugal 2 times.
That's true.
In the top 16 after they lost their series against Portugal, beat Chile to get through to this point, and now have a win and in to BlizzCon against their rivals and losing out, which would mean Portugal advancing through.
Yep, either of these teams has the potential to make it, and I think a lot of it is going to come down to the Control Priest mirror. I've informed the production team and the admins to get looking into the ruling, because there is a solid chance that we do get to the tie. We're going to need to know what happens, like whether we're following HCT highest health wins rulings, which I assume will be the case, or whether we play a rematch, and then another one, and then another one,
I think it's
and then another one.
it's somewhat likely that it doesn't go to the full turn timer, because it's not like the Quest Priest games where you just have seemingly infinite Light Warden Amaras that you can just throw down to heal back up, 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 up. You don't have any armor gain in the deck outside of Anduin, so it could just be the case that Alexstrasza into Mind Blasts close out the game. But here we have a matchup that I've been playing a lot of on ladder the last few days, because I've been piloting an awful lot of Malagos Druid, haven't been having much success with anything else. And a lot of the ladder that I'm seeing is Death Rattle Hunter.
Okay.
And I've been having reasonable success.
Okay.
It's not a good matchup for the Druid, I would say. One of the main reasons why Death Rattle Hunter came into play, or such a top meta deck, was because it was supposed to be good against Druid. But I've seen surprisingly often, unless a blisteringly fast start is made by race, the amount of ramp you can get as the Druid is just too much for the Hunter to deal with.
I guess it's not as bad as Togwaggle against the Hunter.
Oh, nowhere near.
Because Togwaggle, you need to save the naturalizers, but you need to use them. But the Malagos Druid has other ways to clear the board. But just Malagos Swipe is a good tool against Death Rattle Hunter.
Yeah. Which means, well, I was going to say one of the best matchups for Twig. Every matchup is a good matchup for Twig of the World Tree. It is just a brutally powerful card. There is, however, a Gluttonous Ooze in Race's deck, so he will have the ability at some point to be able to deal with it.
Great opening hand for Race, though. He's got Candle Shot, he's got Keleseth, he has a tracking for if he needs it, and he's got Saronite to play on 4. If only the Saronite had been buffed by the Keleseth.
Clearly a bit of a tough turn there for Brazil. The turn 1 tracking had obvious merit, because we could have seen tracking into Keleseth, egg off the tracking, Terrascale Stalker, all that stuff. You would, however, I suppose, rather go for tracking after Keleseth, given the new changes where it does keep the buff now, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So it makes sense doing it in this sequence. However, will Raze want to just play Terrascale on 3? Is he now going to want to curve as aggressively as possible and try and beat Dr. Boom quickly? Or do you think he's going to play the long game and wait for an egg? Or wait for anything to hit the Terrascale Stalker on?
I think playing out the Terrascale Stalker when you have Coin Chain Gang, when you have tracking, is not quite optimistic enough. It can be so brutally powerful in this matchup. And after they've played Wild Growth, they're going to be playing Nourish next turn, although I suppose you don't know that going into turn 3. It's just not aggressive enough. You're never going to get there against the armor. You need to be hitting them with high mains, cubes, and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's got to be tempting, though.
Yeah, everything else feels pretty rough. Coin Chain Gang means no coin cube.
Yeah, and it's coining out 2 2/3s. Big deal. All right, there's an egg, there's a cube. It's actually kind of frustrating that he's got all 3 of these in the tracking. He doesn't want to throw out the other 2.
It's a tough choice. You really want to cube the Witchwood Grizzly, because that's a fantastic target. However, going for the egg on this turn, as I'm sure we're going to be seeing Brazil go for, means next turn, a couple of 5/5s to start chunking away at the board.
Yep.
Even if a Plague comes down, you are then far from out of the game.
Next turn just gets a little bit nutty, doesn't it? However, Dr. Boom's hand is looking quite nutty. He's got Ferocious Howl, which means he might be able to consider ramping up with this Nourish.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would really like to see the Nourish on this hand. The Nourish for ramp here, because you can kill off the Keleseth on this turn. Next turn, go Dream Petal Florist to reduce the cost of your Malagos, and that means you are just a swipe away from probably winning the game right there.
Wow.
Your hand has to be so dire to draw with Malagos Druid off the Nourish.
Yeah, sure. And there's not that many withdraws for Druid either. There are so many cards that draw more cards, or at least do something. I guess Floop would be the worst draw for Dr. Boom here, because then the Florist can hit the Floop, and that would mess up the discount on the Malagos.
Even then, that's not the end of the world, because you can just then ignore the Dream Petal Florist route, or maybe go for it anyway and hope to hit the 50-50. And if you miss, you can then go Malagos, and then you have a cheap Floop, Malagos, to hopefully go for a swipe next turn.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of damage now being faced down, though.
Yeah.
Portugal doesn't have much choice. They don't have other options in their hand, really, other than Dream Metal Florist. I guess they could play Ferocious Howl, upgrade the Spellstone. Still doesn't deal with the 5/5s. Oh, that's a good draw.
That is not bad at all. So if Dream Petal Florist comes down now to reduce the cost of Malagos, as fully expected to do, it means next turn, if there's a swipe drawn, you are obviously over the moon as an Octoboon. You're probably going to be winning that game. If there is not, however, you could still go Moonfire and with a Ferocious Howl as well, Spellstone set up for the ultimate infestation. They maybe just can't kill it off because you clear most of their board.
It's quite incredible, actually, just how much of a board Brazil have managed to come up with, given that it's only turn 5 for them. They only have 5 mana. Druid has a lot more mana, but no board presence. It's just the way the deck works.
And although I was saying that Twig often feels like the way in this matchup that you truly spiral things out of control to a victory, because you go Malagos and then swipe, something like that. This is a very decent pseudo-Twig effect you're getting here, because you're banking your mana by playing 7 mana for the Dream Petal Florist. And then next turn, or in a couple of turns, whenever you want to go for it, Malagos is a fantastic way to go for that big swing in tempo that you need to pull it back.
Lich King's too risky here, isn't it? I mean, like, Hunter's Mark would be lethal.
I think expect going for the Ferocious Howl first.
Doing it in that order specifically so that the Spellstone gets upgraded twice. It can now just deal with the 5/5.
I guess you do just save the Malagos now, because then you can go Ultimate Infestation, hopefully draw a swipe or maybe 2, and then go Malagos into either swipe or floop, and then swipe.
Yep. And they should be, from your Ultimate Infestation, chances are they're drawing at least floop or swipe, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to end up seeing some crazy Moonfire, like Malagos, Moonfire, one threat, Spellstone, another threat, something like that, which isn't ideal, but at least it would put the Malagos on the board.
They're thinking about it here, though. They are very strongly considering just going Malagos into Moonfire on this turn. If there was no Hunter's Mark, it would obviously be insane. Or, sorry, I should say,
that thing.
Or Spider Bomb. So it would be a big risk, I think, in a game that is already looking pretty good for them. They have Ultimate Infestation next turn into maybe an Arcane Tyrant as well. Far from over for them, so they don't need to make these very risky plays.
So really taking their time with this one. I guess they have to consider spreading Plague before they play that Saronite Chain Gang. They don't want to go too wide when they don't have an answer for it in hand.
They also have to be considering Malagos being reduced by the Dream Petal. What other instance could playing a 7 mana 4/4 be better than whatever else it is on your turn?
True.
You have to be reducing Malagos or maybe Lich King. Even that's a big stretch.
So Ultimate Infestation does save Portugal, just. But,
This is getting pretty juicy now.
It's tight, though. Like, Ultimate Infestation puts Portugal up to 16. Leaves 13 damage on the board.
I still don't think that would give the ability for lethal from Brazil, because, again, this Hunter has pretty much no damage at all. Were you including the hero power in that damage? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think Charged Devil Saw obviously can't go face. Katharina, King Crush can't come down. Yeah. There's pretty much nothing here that can actually push the damage over the edge.
Double Spreading Plague is a good start, but I'm guessing there's a Mossy in that Hunter.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yes, there is.
Yeah, so can't rely on Spreading Plague. But there's the swipe that you were clearly getting a little bit excited about there. So
there is now the swipe.
Malagos Floop swipe is 14 damage.
Yeah.
And then 9 damage to everything else.
And then with
11 damage to everything else.
It's 25. Sorry, 10 and the 11. Yeah, 25 damage can go through to face next turn. They cannot draw Moonfire because they elected to burn a card, which I think is correct.
Okay, so what if they only play the one Malagos and deal with the board instead? They could go swipe, Spellstone on the 5/5, leave just the cube alive.
It's not bad. Definitely worth considering. You want to start closing the game out, though. Like, if you throw away Malagos and swipe and you only have Floop left, you don't have a lot of damage to go through to face.
Oh, this is a tough choice itself. Like, Hunter's Mark deals with a Malagos at some point, but they do already have Spider Bomb. Spider Bomb can proc the cube, which means there's 2 eggs on the board, which protects Race from Malagos swipe.
Yeah, more damage coming through here.
But now Spreading Plague is very strong.
Yeah. or Malagos' swipe is very strong. There is a lot of big counterplay, and this is the turn for Dr. Boom where this game is going to be turning around. It's been catch up all the way through this game.
So he has to play clear up though, doesn't he? So he has to go like Malagos, swipe, Spellstone.
Something like that, or it could go for play.
Oh no! Well then.
Yeah, obviously if they'd thrown down Moonfire to draw the Moonfire on the last turn, it wouldn't have been
Yeah, they didn't have a choice. But if they'd drawn a Tyrant or something...
It's a little sad, yes. Obviously they wanted the Tyrant. That was the dream and the expected result. No branching paths to protect against Mossy Horror with the spreading play.
That's the problem. That King Crush and Katharina have been sat in the hand for quite a few turns. They could easily be Mossy Horror.
So if we were to see Malagos, Floop, Spellstone the Cube, Swipe Face, that leaves a 5/5 on the board, which would be lethal, so you can't do that. If we were to see Malagos, Spellstone the Cube.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moonfire, the egg, then Swipe Face. That deals with everything.
It's a little sad. But it is still one heck of a board swing back in your favour for Dr. Boom.
It is.
I mean, how can I say this is a little sad? Look at what he is doing on this turn. He is dealing absurd amounts of damage.
Giving up potentially lethal is pretty sad.
Yeah. It's not ideal. You would like the Moonfire.
Brazil can't play King Crush. They don't have an activator yet for Spider Bomb. They now have an activator for Spider Bomb.
Oh, it was just an easy Katharina and just hope they don't have the extra damage. And I think they are still going for the fact that they hope there's no second swipe, or they would have seen it, right? If there was another swipe, it would have been Swipe Face.
Yeah.
If there was another Moonfire, they saw the Moonfire was burned, so
that's lethal.
No, that's not there.
The charged Devil Saw coming out of the Katharina is lethal. Big smile from Raze as he does take that game, which was looking like Dr. Boom was going to win that for a while.
And we were fully expecting, as you usually do in Death Rattle Hunter, for a Witchwood Grizzly.
Witchwood Grizzly or a Jaime or something innocent and sweet and
that's the expected
not
list.
lethal.
That is usually what we're playing for, but we've seen a couple of teams, I believe, Chinese Taipei and Brazil, who are going for that one charged Devil Saw just for a little bit of extra damage, and it is surprising. It surprised us. I did not expect that to be lethal with the King Crush already in hand, but I believe that was 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3 because they didn't. One of the Grizzlies went off tracking.
Whiz-bangs Wizzlies!
Grizzlies went off tracking is what I was trying to say.
Well, Derek, we had a nice and quick game. Let's take a look at game number 2. It's Lucas on the Control Priest versus the Viper on the Control Priest, both of which are running one copy of Archbishop Benedictus. What if they're both the bottom card?
That could happen, at which point the game will probably have been decided by damage already.
Yeah.
And if not, that would be not any cards being shuffled in.
Do you think...
So I guess that's the dream.
Do they keep Benedictus in the mulligan?
I imagine they probably will.
But
because it's like an arms race. You don't really want to play Benedictus, but if it's your bottom card and it's not your opponent's bottom card, think of the disadvantage you're putting yourself.
Yeah, but by keeping Benedictus, if you don't have Anduin in the hand, then you're potentially pushing Anduin lower in the deck, and that's your other win condition. Like, which win condition do you play for?
So, I suppose that's what the teams will have discussed, as I imagine they will have played this matchup more. I have never played Benedictus Control Priest Mirrors before, because Control Priest is hardly played. Benedictus Control Priest is never played, apart from in the most specific of scenarios where you're deliberately trying to target something. So I guess we'll be finding out along the way together whether it's more consistent to go for the traditional Control Priest victory of Alex Fraser, Anduin, Mind Blast to face, or Fatigue. Just don't draw a card, get the Benedictus as quick as possible.
It's our last day here in the Hearthstone Global Games Studio in Katowice, and what a way to go. It's my last series here, as you and Raven are going to be casting the last one. And, you know, they often say that your last memory is the one that stays with you. So, Derek, I'm sure we're going to remember this Benedictus mirror for a very long time.
Yeah.
As are Portugal and Brazil.
I mean, they're not going to be remembering it for a long time. They're going to be playing it for a long time. They'll be 80 thinking back to the start of the game because they'll still be playing it. It is going to be Viper once again, who seems to be the guy in charge of the very long, grindy matches. Did he say that one of his favorite matchups was like Control Warrior Mirror or something
Possibly,
back in the
yeah,
day.
yeah,
I think I
so.
remember something like that. He loves these very grindy matchups, and so if you did have to have someone piloting this kind of game, it's not only about skill, it is about mental fatigue.
Yeah.
On ladder, if you get into this kind of a situation, you just stop caring after a while.
I have to be honest, Derek, like, it's maybe a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I do also enjoy these long, grindy matchups. I enjoy a good Odd Warrior Mirror. I'm going to add the little caveat that, like, if they mean that I might miss my flight tomorrow, suddenly I enjoy them a little bit less, which this one might. But generally, I like them.
Yeah, I feel like there are still a lot of decisions that will matter to the game, but unlike the quicker, more mid-range matchups or the quicker combo matchups, there's such a gap in between the important decisions because the game goes on for so long, it will be so many turns, that even when it does have a very skill-intensive game, it takes such a long time to see that come into actuality.
All right, well, Lucas has started with Shadow Reaper Anduin in his opening hand.
That's an easy keep in a regular Control Priest mirror.
I mean, I still think it is.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just throwing away the Omega Medic potentially. As for Portugal,
It's just a Twilight Drake.
Yeah, I mean, they want to aggressively be searching for one of these two win conditions, so I like throwing away everything except the Twilight Drake. Maybe even the Twilight Drake?
If they really think it comes down to exactly Anduin or exactly Benedictus, then maybe that is way more important than any kind of board presence. But like I was saying at the start, this won't be like the Quest Priest mirrors where it really is just a complete dead end. Like, it's a draw. No one can kill each other because there's too much healing. I think if you choose to completely ignore board presence, you will lose because you will just be beaten down by your opponent's Twilight Drake.
Yeah.
Hello, my friend. The light shall burn you. Thank you.
Are we going to have this the whole game?
The light
Production, can we please squelch them? Thank you very much. I don't know if I can take 2 hours of that.
It's like when you're in secondary school and your mate says like, oh, check out this newer video. It's called The Annoying Orange. It's hilarious. And you're like, no, it's not funny. Be quiet, please.
Except neither of them were saying be quiet. They were both just doing the emo.
Yeah.
If they're going to rope every turn as well, then we can raise the expected time of this game to 4 hours, not 2.
But I am still... Just because this is such an unknown for me, because this is such a strange matchup that I've never experienced before in Hearthstone, I am excited to see how it goes. Or is my hypothesis correct that it is more about board control and Anduin damage than about Benedictus going to come true? Maybe the fact is they will just keep Psychic Screaming minions back into each other's decks, removing with silence, things like that. They will do that so much to the point where fatigue is the win condition. But I think still what is more likely is a few minions will stick, and even if you Psychic Scream them back in, they'll come back eventually, and Anduin will close out the game with Alexstrasza.
Quickly.
This is a pretty big indication of how Brazil feel the game is going to go. I feel like Mind Blast might be the way to go to deliver a little bit more damage. I have to be honest, I wasn't really considering Divine Him. I was looking at Mind Blast or Psychic Scream.
Psychic Scream to shuffle minions into your opponent's deck and then add them to your deck.
I just think you need to be worrying about board control.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Divine Him for draw, I guess that's showing even more what they're thinking is here, is that they want to draw through to their Alex and start killing their opponent.
Worth pointing out, if the Viper... Actually, no, Benedictus gets confusing, man. I was going to say if the Viper plays Benedictus before Brazil have drawn their Benedictus, then it means they have a clear advantage because they'll be drawing another one at some point. But the thing is then, when Brazil draw their Benedictus...
They can Benedictus their own Benedictus.
They'll be getting that back, and we end up in a game where both players have 60 cards, which is the maximum, by the way. They do have... the decks do have a maximum limit of 60 cards, which I only learned in the one Benedictus mirror I ever played.
But in... Quest Priest, you run cards like Zola and Boar, don't you, to bounce back your Mara, which you can just use to bounce back your Benedictus to get even more cards into your deck.
But again, like, I mean, I've seen Benedictus played with a 59 card deck and literally just pick up one card. Because, again, it's I really never knew that the decks had a maximum card limit. Probably a good thing too.
Probably. As Brazil have got themselves in a situation where they are vulnerable to having their Northshire Cleric just dying, which would make the pick of Divine Him very sad indeed. They want to be preserving this at all cost, which comes in the form from them. of swapping here instead of playing the Twilight Drake, which they would much rather do, just to try and get a little bit of draw. Because next turn, if they can get 1 or 2 cards drawn, that is massive.
Almost as massive as the Shadow Reaper Anduin draw, as both teams have now picked that up, which will be adding, I guess, an extra time limit to this game.
And I am very happy to see that from Portugal. In my, to be perfectly honest, we have seen too many games in the last week decided by who draws their Death Knight and who doesn't.
Yeah, I know.
Shadow Reaper Anduin has been in the bottom 3 or 4 twice, which has just lost the game. They haven't been able to find it. So here, both players finding their Death Knight is fantastic. This will be a much more even game now. Who knows, maybe Benedictus is the most important quote-unquote Death Knight in this matchup, just to find as soon as possible and upgrade your ultimate win condition.
But then I'm also... Do they want to play Benedictus while it's still in their opponent's deck? Because like I said, it just means when they draw it, then it just keeps on going. Would they prefer to wait until later on in the game and then play Benedictus?
Well, then if both players are going to do that, it becomes a stalemate where neither player will play it because they don't know if the Benedictus is in their opponent's deck, so neither player plays it. I think basically, if you want to go for fatigue, you play it as soon as possible. But maybe we're just overemphasizing how much Benedictus is important in this matchup. Maybe you just never play it at all because it dilutes your deck with an identical deck. I guess it's not even diluting, is it? Like once you have the same chance of drawing Mind Blast than Alexstrasza.
Once you've drawn Anduin, it's not diluted anymore, is it? Like Anduin is the important card. Once you've drawn it, you don't really care what else you draw. Like you said, Alexstrasza, sure, Mind Blast, sure, but you're just adding them to your deck as well.
Because the Viper has seen that Lucas kept a card, which will very likely be Anduin. Any card you keep until now but do not play is extremely likely to be Anduin.
Or Benedictus.
Or maybe Benedictus. Again, we are just having to figure this out on the go because this is not a meta deck.
I'm still not sure that playing it as soon as possible is the way you win the fatigue game.
Me neither.
It's so weird. Like, it gets much, much more simple if Lucas draws his Benedictus before one gets played, because suddenly the infinite supply of Benedictus...
It's like 40 cards versus 40 cards, roughly.
Yeah.
If they're played on curve.
Like, you know, he draws it, he slams his, Portugal slam his, there's no more Benedictus in the deck, great. But as soon as Portugal play theirs, before Brazil's is drawn, this game goes a whole other level, one which I don't think any Hearthstone player has worked out yet. Maybe we should give Zet a lot of call.
Move quickly.
Nah, he's probably too busy cloning.
So in the mid game, while we have been talking about the macro of how this could be an incredibly long series of Hearthstone, it's been a pretty gritty fight for board.
Yeah.
At all stages here, fighting with the Dustbreakers and the Twilight Drakes primarily, just to try and lock something down on this board and get a little bit of chip damage through to face, so that when you do go for the Anduin, you can just close out the game as soon as possible.
And now I'm sure Portugal will be, well, I'm not sure. They may be continuing to play for board this turn and just play Skulking Ghost on curve, saving that coin for coin Anduin. Or they might just want to coin out Benedictus and play the card as quickly as possible. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we see coin Benedictus on this turn.
I doubt it.
I would expect to see coin Shadow Reaper Anduin because there's very few cards that you want to destroy with Shadow Reaper Anduin in terms of the battle cry. It's more about getting the immediate effect. Having said that, however, maybe saving the coin for another Shadow Reaper Anduin Hero Power activation is the more likely outcome. But
these health totals are going to become very important, though, because once both priests give up their initial hero power, only Divine Hymn heals them, and Alexstrasza, I guess. After that, that's it. So that'll really be the thing that prevents this game from going on forever. It will be the fact that one of the players will just run out of health. It's like a regular game of Hearthstone.
And that does play into the thinking of Lucas to take Divine Hymn on turn 2 with the Shadow Visions, where maybe that's just a very astute play where he's thinking, I already have Shadow Reaper Anduin, I need to get some healing for when they Alex me, but
here we go.
Aside from all the Alexstrasza Anduin nonsense, Benedictus is coming down here for a 35 card deck for Portugal.
Okay, here's how Portugal win now the fatigue game. They need to draw the other Benedictus and not play it.
Right.
Because that way, when Lucas draws his Benedictus, he plays that one. He doesn't get an extra Benedictus. and then the Viper can play his Benedictus from the hand, meaning he ends up with a bigger deck.
All right, that makes sense to me.
We found a potential outcome of the game. One of them.
I mean, if that is the case, it will go to the turn limit. Like, if it goes, like, if fatigue is your thinking, and you both have minimum 45 card decks plus, because if Brazil draws his Benedictus and plays it, he will have a 45-50 card deck. That means unless someone wins on board, which makes fatigue irrelevant anyway, it will go to the turn limit.
A sobering thought.
I do not expect that, though.
No, I don't think so either. I honestly do think one of the players will run out of health. So Benedictus, despite how much we've talked about it, probably doesn't mean anything in this matchup.
It means you can draw without punishment.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Good point.
Like the fact that it just gives you a buffer, which means you can draw quickly through your whole deck, then try and shuffle cards back in.
So if the Viper wants to deal with this Primordial Drake, he can play both Duskbreakers, though that seems like a bit of a waste. He's playing his own Drake.
Both players are mitting Anduin on curve.
Oh, is that what you expected to see?
Oh, somewhat.
Yeah.
We saw Anduin and Alexstrasza for Brazil. We could have just seen Anduin, Alexstrasza next turn. You don't have enough Mind Blast to really be thinking about lethal yet, I think, for Brazil, but it was a consideration, to be sure.
Oh, how many Mind Blasts are in Portugal's deck? 3, I guess, because one was
Yes.
chosen by Brazil. But then how many Shadow Visions are in Viper's deck?
They have 3 Visions. Oh, sorry, 3 Visions, 3 Mind Blasts.
Yep, that sounds right to me.
So for a current potential of 6. How much? Well, that's just.
It's
you're
just-
not, that's just 5 Mind Blasts you play in a
It's
turn.
just 25 damage, yeah. Anduin doesn't really mean anything there.
Yeah.
Although what you probably end up doing is playing 2 a turn, and you fit in a lot of pings as well.
Yeah.
That's 32 over 2 turns.
And now we do finally get to see, I would imagine, the Anduin coming down for Brazil. You want to set up for Alexstrasza as soon as possible. The main consideration for why they wouldn't go for it here is because they're expecting Alexstrasza from their opponent on the next turn. But they have 2 major answers to that in Psychic Scream or Twilight Acolyte. So I think getting this down as soon as possible just feels fine.
As a Mind Blast? Maybe.
I mean, there's like
There's so many spells. in this
so many spells in the deck.
Like 3 copies of at least 6 different spells.
But weirdly enough, does it mean that because you're shuffling the same spells as are already in your deck, you're still just as likely to find Mind Blast?
I think so.
It's a weird game. As Portugal here are using a...
I love this so much.
Really?
I really like it. Like, so they've still got their original hero, which means they have their original hero power.
Yeah.
They can heal if they need to. But this is a lot of board pressure. Lucas sort of has to Psychic Scream here.
It couldn't have worked out any worse for the Viper, though, where there is both the second copy of Psychic Scream and Alexstrasza in hand, which means using the Divine Hymn right now is essentially useless because they scream it away.
That's true.
And you can't use it after Alexstrasza. I think considering the fact that a Psychic Scream has already been played, it's a fine play because you're not expecting the other one to come through. So chip damage on board is very important. The punish is there, though.
I just want to say, if Psychic Scream gets played now, that there's going to be 2 Benedictus in the Viper's deck and 1 Benedictus in Lucas' deck.
That's fine. Lucas isn't going to worry about that. I think.
It doesn't matter. It's just crazy.
But then, I mean, if there's more Benedictus in his deck, it means Brazil shuffles more Benedictus into their own deck.
It just never ends.
Yeah. Clearly considering the Northshire Cleric being shuffled back in as well. Obviously not in terms of fatigue, but just to try and hope that you stop your opponent from finding Shadow Reaper Anduin as quick as possible. We, however, can see, as I expect to see on this turn, Anduin's already there, ready to come down, which Lucas and the rest of the Brazilians will be less than happy about.
So now I guess it's a race to get the Mind Blasts, which for Lucas, he has a much thinner deck. He could get to his second Visions and his second Mind Blast a lot more quickly than the Viper.
This is not, I think, as obvious as an Alex as it may look at first glance here. Because if you set up a board and then go for Alexstrasza, that's such a big burst swing because you can then set their health to 15 and then attack to face for 8 with the 2 Drakes and the, with the Drake and the Skulking Geist. Even then, it's Alexstrasza after your opponent's just played Anduin. You're getting them to a point where hopefully they just die. They've just played Divine Hymn. You just start pinging them to face every turn, and Lucas will, as it currently looks, be pretty far ahead in this game.
It's worth noting, though, that one of Lucas's Divine Hymns could have been a Mind Blast. He had the option to take Mind Blast instead of Divine Hymn. So he would have had 16 damage burst from his hand ready to go this turn. Had he chosen to take that route. It doesn't look like it's going to matter too much. It is looking like Portugal aren't going to survive much longer.
They got visions into a potential Hymn. They could start developing their own board. Mass Dispel draws a card. They've got good cards that they can get at this point.
It's very slow, isn't it? Like visions into a Hymn, they're not taking a Mind Blast, they're healing up briefly, but Lucas can deal 6 damage very fast.
Yeah, if the 2 Hymns weren't there for Lucas, then maybe we could see a counter-lethal represented from Viper, where he goes ping, visions, Mind Blast, ping, something like that. But double visions just pretty much, double Hymn closes out that possibility.
I honestly think this is just going to be it. Like, now maybe not. I was going to say, because Portugal, ping Pyromancer, Mass Dispel, ping the Drake, and then they're dead to the... Oh no, they're not dead because there's no second Mind Blast. Ignore me completely. Still thinking as if there's 16 damage in Brazil's hand.
Consider it done. As
no, please don't.
With a ping. Does a pretty good job of clearing up this board.
Yeah.
I do fully expect to see a Divine Hymn on this turn because they know there is a Visions card in hand, which I think, similar to what we were expecting, Viper will also be expecting that to be a Mind Blast, which it was not. Now another Mind Blast in hand.
It was not, but now it is. Well, it's not, but it almost is.
So 2 pings to face on this turn. Gets 19, 17. Not quite good enough.
We can go ping him, ping him, ping.
I don't think you want to do that. What if they Alex you? These Hymns are too useful.
Well, if they Alex you, you've got lethal next turn.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good point.
Ping him, ping him, ping.
What if they go like what if they go Hymn into Alex? Like, I guess it's quite a lot of stuff that has to go wrong.
It sets up the 2-turn lethal. I don't want to say guaranteed 2-turn lethal, but
it's definitely not guaranteed.
It's close, though.
It's likely to work out for you.
Shadowy thoughts.
Are they running a Holy Fire in their deck?
Me hungry.
No, they're not. Yeah, this is the play I was looking at most heavily because it still likely sets up lethal, where unless they deal with this, they're dead.
This is the safer play for sure. The safer lethal setup. So what's it going to be? Ping, Dustbreaker, ping on the Skulking Geist? That's kind of awkward. Psychic Scream is... Ugh.
Psychic Scream is pretty
Darkness speaks.
But everything's pretty
Dustbreaker, Dustbreaker, ping face?
You go ping, Dustbreaker, ping to clear it off.
Oh, they can't play both Dustbreakers, they don't both get the effect.
I think it's ping, Dustbreaker, ping.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a good way to clear off this board.
Leaves it 3-3 alive, leaves Brazil 1 damage off lethal.
Yeah, it gets something on the board as well.
What are we looking for? Another Hymn?
Oh, they can start off with Visions.
Oh, they only have, what? 31 cards in the deck and only have 2 spells to choose between.
That's nuts. Wow. So they are just out of healing now, unless they find Alexstrasza, which only gets them to 15. I think that's just going to be it.
That is the most bizarre discovery I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, Lucas can set up for lethal next turn very easily now.
Just needs 1 ping to face to set it up. Alexstrasza would not get Portugal out of range. I'm just looking at any other healing that they might have. The Omega Medic that Brazil have in their deck list, they have shuffled into their deck list. That's the out.
You're right.
That's the out.
You're right, it is.
To me.
They do not have it in their starting deck list, but because their opponents have it, maybe they can use the Benedictus Memery in true.
They have a 1 in 31 chance for it. No.
That's pretty good. That's some good stuff. If it happens, all right, come on. Let's... Have you got Trollden's number? Because I got a feeling we might be needing to give him a ring any time now. And it is going to have to be right now for any chance at all.
Even then, buys them one turn. It's Wild Pyromancer, and that is going to be the end of this game. Brazil are going to take this Benedict's Mirror in not the 2 hours that we expected it to be, but I think we both, pretty early on in this game, came to that conclusion. Really, Benedictus isn't going to matter, especially in the world in which both players drew Anduin within the first few turns. Limited health supply, unlimited damage. The game ends now.
And I think the key turn here for Portugal wasn't any of the stuff with Benedictus, any nonsense like that. What it came down to me, was playing their Divine Hymn for board control.
Yep.
If there was any other hand that didn't have exactly Psychic Scream and Alexstrasza, it would have worked out well. They get in chip damage, they have Anduin, they can maybe win the game. But in the exact hand where it is second copy of Psychic Scream, which could have come off of Shadow Visions, it's worth saying there was a non-Shadow Visions played card, a non-played Shadow Visions card, sorry, in the hand for Brazil. That could have been a Psychic Scream as well. However, Psychic Scream into Alexstrasza was the potential downside of their play. It came into effect, and it was just not even a close game from there on.
That wasn't quite the brain melter in which I expected it to be. The score is 2-0 to Brazil. They need to win one more game to qualify for the Hearthstone Global Games Finals at BlizzCon. Will they pull off the full sweep, or will Portugal put a stop to Brazil's reign of terror? Find out after this. Brazil are leading the charge with a 2-0 score against Portugal. They're one game away from getting to BlizzCon. Derek, do you think they're going to turn it into a sweep?
It looks like they might have a little bit of a difficulty doing exactly that, getting a 3-0, as the matchups start to turn around a little bit here for Brazil. Although they very almost lost their game one against the Malagos Druid with that Dream Petal into Malagos. They got Odd Paladin now up against the Control Warlock, which is just not a nice matchup. You have everything, all the tools that you would need to deal with an Odd Paladin as the Control Warlock. You've got Defile, Hellfire, I would imagine with the Tainted Zealot thrown in there as well, as I will take a closer look at the deck list in a second. But you also have not only the removal, but the stall tools. Skull into the Void Lords. Well, there we go, already there. The Stonehill Defenders to make even more Void Lords. It's just a very nice matchup indeed.
Then again, Neve's opening hand, Corridor Creeper, is always worth considering a keep there, as it very quickly becomes a 0-mana 2/5 to be played into a Fungal Mancer turn. Maybe he can keep all three of these.
Yeah, I honestly don't know about Corridor Creeper against Control Warlock because I have not played against Control Warlock much with Odd Paladin. Against all the aggressive decks, it's usually the highest win rate card when kept. So, due to the fact that they're not going to be having many minions die, I think you could consider throwing it away.
Okay.
But because your hero power is just so good anyway, you don't want to do anything else in the early turns. I think you probably keep it here. Because if they do kill all your minions, then brilliant, you can play your Corridor Creeper. If they don't kill all your minions, you're probably winning.
Yeah. Oh, they end up throwing away both. I wonder what they're digging for instead. Vine Cleaver, obviously a great card to have, though.
It's a bit late game oriented, I would say.
Do they have weapon removal in this Warlock? It doesn't look like they do, actually. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong Warlock.
We've got Brazil's deck list twice. I think they might have got a little bit confused in the break.
Here you go.
There we go.
Saved.
Printer issues here at the Hearthstone Global.
And yes, there is weapon removal in the Control Warlock.
As is pretty much always the case. Looking at the Odd Paladin, however, cards that could have been looked for, there's no Divine Favor that they would be looking for. I guess the main thing they're looking for is level up, because that is just so fantastic in pretty much any control-ish matchup, even with the Hellfire knocking about. But being faced with a Doomsayer, I think they would be definitely liking to see a Corridor Creeper in hand now, just so they could nuke this whole board of 1/1s.
I mean, Brazil wouldn't have minded to have the Blessed Maul to buff the attack one. You're pretty good with the names of these things, yeah?
I think that sounds about right. I'm really bad at names of Mauls. I know Sacred Maul, because that's the one I hate.
And the one that's been popping up all day.
Yeah.
Just not sure if Blessed is Divine Shield. No, Champions is no, Champions is that one there. Oh, I don't know.
So the Corridor Creeper, that they did not keep but are rewarded with anyway, is looking like it's going to be a nice way to get a little bit of damage going.
Yep, it's looking to me like Portugal are just going to outright win this game on turn 6. When the Skull goes off, summons the Void Lord. We've seen how much grief these Void Lords can cause on Paladin. They just have no way through them.
God, this is like some good old school cards to hate about Hearthstone, isn't it? Like nowadays it's all, oh, you know, Keleseth is really annoying when it comes down. Oh, they've got Wild Growth. What about Skull? That was like, for a while, that was the God, I hope they don't have that card.
Sorry, are you saying Wild Growth isn't old school?
Yeah, well, I guess that's been around forever, but I feel like the saltiness about Skull has been lacking somewhat. Especially when they have double Void Lord.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Skull coming down now. No way of removing the Skull whatsoever. 2 Void Lords going to come down over the next 2 turns. Brazil may as well concede this one right now.
They obviously don't know that all that
of
nonsense is there. And let's have a look at their decks.
They have a
Are they running Owls? They're not. They have Void Ripper, which is something. Yeah, even then.
One Void Ripper.
Yeah, it is very unlikely to be getting the job done against all this pressure that Zuka's going to be throwing down, because make no mistake, this is not only the ability to mop up every single one of these tokens, it's also a non-zero amount of pressure. It's not like some matchups where Odd Paladin can go infinitely into the late game. Portugal will be mopping up every single minion turn after turn. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, it's just disgusting. There's now 3/6 spawns. 3 more 1/3s. There's a Lord Godfrey. If Brazil ever do somehow get a board. Yeah, Blessed Maul is +1 attack.
Nicely done, my friend.
Is Divine the Divine Spirit? Divine Maul, is that a thing?
You're putting me on the spot here. I'm really bad with the names of Mauls. I know what they all do, but...
Green Sheep knows Maul.
Really?
I was very
Well, he's an odd
that.
Paladin player. It's like all he plays.
Reporting for duty.
Just doesn't know how to qualify for BlizzCon.
Savage.
Too soon?
Yeah, a bit too soon, probably. As another attempt onto the board is made by Brazil. Maybe they can get some kind of a big level up to break through these Void Lords and Void Walkers. But as we can clearly see, that seems unlikely to come into actuality.
In theory, Nevs has a great hand with the Vine Cleaver and the level up and the Raid Leader, but...
I mean, who knows? If they can get a big board to stick of 1/1s somehow, then...
Through the Godfrey and through the Twisting Nether, through the many, many, many taunts, as soon as Gul'dan gets drawn, this game definitively ends.
Yeah. Yes, that is the nail in the coffin for Brazil, is they need that... They need the Gul'dan to really close this one out, but even then, if we see hero power level up on this turn, they can break through one of the Void Lords, and then they're facing a bunch of Void Walkers. They have to go for Vine Cleaver, because that level up is Gold Dust. That is their win condition now for the rest of this game, is to make a board of minions that cannot be dealt with and breaks through the Void Walkers. I think they don't crack open this Void Lord, because that trades so much better with all the 1/3s.
I agree with you, though it feels so strange.
Yeah.
Like, they can't even create a situation here where they can deal with both Void Lords on the same turn and get less Void Walkers as a result, because there's enough space on the board for all 6 of them.
So another Shroom Brewer coming down for yet more health on their Void Lords. We could have seen at some point now a Demonic Project coming down for another minion to be pulled with the Skull. But you don't know if there are any minions you want to remove from your opponent. Lord Godfrey is a good card. You probably just save that until your hand's looking a little bit more lackluster.
I think so too. I mean, you can end up giving the Paladin Doomguard and some good aggressive cards like that. Not that Doomguard would be enough to win this game for Brazil. But here we go. Here's I guess their big push. The level up. They have a board that trades well with the Void Walkers. It just then sort of doesn't do much after that.
Yep, even without any additional help for Portugal in the form of silence or board clear or anything like that, we could quite happily see, I imagine, just triple trade with the Shroom Brewers and the Void Lord to take out the vast majority of these 3/3s, which leaves Neves with a whole lot of nothing. Oh, and with Blood Reaver down, you can probably even just rip Twisting Nether, because this is the scariest board you're going to be seeing for a while.
Yep. I agree. Is Twisting Nether better than Godfrey here? Godfrey actually leaves the Void Lord alive.
Oh, really?
Seems good to me.
Again, you don't have to do either, really, do you? It doesn't matter what you do here now that cooldown has been found, as long as you don't let yourself get overrun. Like I said, the first play seemingly turning out to be the best.
Azuka aren't far from setting up for a 2-turn lethal at some point. 12 damage on the board now.
Moving Void Rip is one of the best burns. Not that it would really have made any difference, I think, at this point, as we can see. And despite Brazil's surprisingly decent effort to fight back for board here, they still haven't even got through one entire Void Lord yet, with one Void Walker knocking about still.
Nevs is just looking at his hand and thinking, why am I playing this matchup?
Yep, this is just not the one you want to queue it into. Odd Paladin is just more of an anti-aggro, aggressive, mid-rangey-ish kind of deck that can go long in some matchups, obviously, as it's doing a decent job of here. But if you don't lock down that board for when you go for the level up, you're just not winning the game.
It's not the matchup that Brazil wanted at all when they queued the Odd Paladin. But hey, that's that. 12 damage for Portugal.
One final big push onto the board made here. Neves throws it down, knowing there is nothing that can be done as Zuka takes the first game of the series. A very, very favourable one there, as I believe he took the same matchup against Spain yesterday when they also put their Odd Paladin into his control Warlock. Very much the same thing, where it's just pretty much unlosable when you hit Skull into two Void Lords.
Yep, that's just a tough matchup for Brazil. Brazil already won 2 games this series, though, so they've only got to win one more. They've got 2 more chances to get there. Let's take a look at what's coming up next and see how Brazil's chances are going. All right, Perna on the Odd Warrior and Portugal on the not Odd Paladin, Mechano Egg Paladin.
Yeah, this is a deck we've seen from a couple of the teams, from New Zealand, who I believe were our first team to qualify through to BlizzCon after going 2-0 through the upper bracket of their group. And it's been doing surprisingly well, I would say, in a meta that doesn't run, or if you can line it up, I should say, against a deck that doesn't have too much silence or transform, it just destroys them because it has way too much taunt, divine shield, death rattle synergy, magnetic effects working together with Khadgar's Endless Army. However, up against an Odd Warrior, while I would imagine you're in a pretty good spot because you have so much value with all your eggs and mechs and Khadgar's Endless Army once again, there is, I would imagine, the potential for missteps to be made which can open up opportunities for the Odd Warrior to swing board back into their favour with the Iron Beak Owls.
The thing is, unlike the Death Rattle Hunter, Khadgar's Endless Army isn't actually endless, is it? It does end at some point. It can take a little while to get rid of if it comes out with another egg and another 8/8, and you have to deal with the buffed up egg, and then you get another 8/8. But then, once the Warrior does deal with it, say Brawl Reckless Flurry or something, then the Paladin's kind of out of stuff. Yeah.
Which is why they have to be careful about how they meter out their resources. The first time I saw this deck being played was when Muzzy was piloting Copa America. I believe he was one of the original creators of the deck. And I was surprised at how not greedily he was playing the deck. He had opportunities to get all 3 resurrections of Khadgar's, but he played it early, just for 2 mechs resurrected. And he almost ended up losing the series because, like you said, he ran out of value. But the benefit of this deck is it's not like an Odd Warrior where the value is very slow. It comes in the form of a lease for a pack, which you eventually crack open and maybe you get a good legendary. The value comes in the form of you have an egg on the board, which you buff up, you buff up, you buff up. You're smacking your opponent in the face all the meanwhile. It's consistent aggression accompanied with a good amount of value.
There are 2 other big things going for the Paladin, though, in this matchup. One of which is Uther of the Ebon Blade, which is actually run in Portugal's version of the list. It wasn't in Muzzy's, it's not in all of them, but obviously if the Warrior can't deal with those 2/2s every turn, then it will just win eventually. The other thing is Valonir, which has always been very good against the control deck, because unlike the Endless Army, Valonir is endless. And also, a little interaction I like to talk about, a little pet interaction, is if you buff up a magnetic minion with Valonir, then magnetize that minion onto, say, Mechano Egg, and then that Mechano Egg comes back later from Khadgar's Endless Army, the Valonir buff counts as a magnetic upgrade, and you get it again, which means you can pull off the double Valonir thing, where it just keeps going. That can be very helpful against Odd Warrior.
But if you had a minion on the board that had the Valonir buff and then you magnetize something unbuffed onto that, it doesn't keep it. Okay,
because
that makes sense.
It's magnetic upgrades only. It's very clever, actually. I didn't expect the interaction to work that way, but hey, it does, and it's cool. And it could help Portugal a lot in this matchup.
Well, what it's definitely going to mean is that the 2 Iron Beak Owls in Brazil's deck list are going to be like absolute gold dust. You just cannot be throwing those away willy-nilly, lest you lose to a Valinir, or a Khadgar's Endless Army, or a Spike Ridge Steed, or a War Gear that's been magnetized onto something.
The other interesting interaction around Khadgar's Endless Army is that if you magnetize a big minion, and then it gets silenced, it still retains the magnetic upgrades when it gets brought back to life by the Endless Army. It's not like some other minions where it loses it originally. Like, if it were to get transformed, it wouldn't, obviously, but because it's only silenced, it still gets all the buffs back again.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
It is a little bit confusing. One of the newer effects that we've had introduced into Hearthstone, but it is a very, very fun card. I'm glad that some form of mechanical paladin exists. The first deck I built in Boomsday was a mech paladin, just straight up aggro version.
Mech God Paladin, was it?
It was not very good. Not Mech God Paladin,
Ah, okay.
just mech paladin where it had all the 1-drops. I had the upgradable frame bot in there as well. Just every mech I could fit in with Khadgar's Endless Army. It was not a very good deck. It just lost board too early on, and it didn't do any damage.
Yeah. The problem with Khadgar's... Is it Khadgar's or Khadgar's? Because I keep saying Khadgar's.
I'm pretty sure it's Khadgar's. Oh, Kangor's.
Kangor's, we're both getting
saying
it
it
wrong.
the whole time. Oh.
Unbelievable. Right, the problem with Kangor's Endless Army is that, again, it's not endless, which means if you've played lots of Mecharoos and little things like that, chances are you pay 7 mana, you get 3 1/1s back.
Which is why you don't play those minions in this deck. You play the big mechs only.
1 Meat Wagon, you play Annoyer Modules and Bronze Gatekeepers, which are solely meant to be magnetized on top of the egg. Meat Wagon's purpose is to get the egg.
It's the only 0 attack minion in the deck, which means it will be pulling it straight out of there. And hopefully getting a whole lot of buffs on it right away. Because that is really the core of this deck in terms of what you're trying to buff is the egg. You want to be bringing that back with Kangor's Endless Army as much as possible, with all the buffs thrown onto it as well. It does mean that if you want to get full value out of the Endless Army, you don't want to play Meat Wagon, because that is a mech. It brings back, it is resummoned off the Endless Army.
Mega Assembly probably wants to be held on to until turn 10. I guess it's not really a value matchup, though.
I don't think so, yeah.
It's kind of almost a value matchup, but not a value matchup.
Yeah, but it's not like a fatigue matchup. Like, it's important to make the distinction is that Perna needs to be playing quickly. He cannot keep the cards for the maximum value every time. He needs to be playing for tempo, I think. Because if he loses board to all these mechs and has to use silence and brawls too quickly, it will mean that he is not able to have enough resources to win in the long term.
Whatever this decision is, it's a toughie.
Yeah, apologies for the spectator issues.
Nightmare Amalgam is the pickup. Wow, I wonder what the options were.
I doubt very good ones,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. I think they were looking for, I would guess...
Mechathune.
Yeah.
No.
I was going to say Dynamatic, but your opponent is playing a lot of mechs, which definitely lowers the impact of it. That's just my default for good mech that you pick.
Dynamatic is a fantastic card.
No wonder.
Beryllium Nullifier. It's a little bit... Your opponent's on the offensive. You want to be playing quicker minions than that, I think.
The problem with Beryllium Nullifier in this matchup is the equality that we can see right there in Lazy's hand. In an ideal world, yeah, Brazil could make their own huge taunt that Portugal can never get through, but alas, that is just not the case. So do you think Perna plays a little bit to tempo here? Just slams Nightmare Amalgam on turn 3? Fiery War Axe to back that up on turn 4?
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of why you would have picked it. Again, we do not know the options that were available either from the Nightmare Amalgam, but I would have to imagine if you're picking it, it's because you want to play it on turn 3 to start fighting for board against the smaller mechs.
Perna wants to play Dragon Warrior again. Nightmare Amalgam's a dragon, right?
I guess so. It's everything. I don't think I've ever seen the dragon part of it come into play.
No, me neither.
But basically, I think what we're trying to drive at here is that Nightmare Amalgam doesn't do much at all, because the minions that Lazy are going to be playing are either going to be completely inconsequential, or relatively so at least, like the Stonehill Defender, which, you know, hits you for 1 every turn, whatever. The Meat Wagon, fine, it's just a small minion. Or they're going to be massive. It's going to be stuff like the Egg, which will be buffed up, against which Nightmare Amalgam does nothing.
Wow, that's a pick. Very curious that Portugal went with the Booty Bay Bodyguard over the 1-1 though, because stat-wise this is much worse for the mana cost. But I guess Lazy A is thinking, I'm not going to have anything better to do on turn 5.
It's just going to be, I think, that he's got plenty of mana. He doesn't need to care about taking the best minion. He just wants the most stats, which Booty Bay Bodyguard is obviously the best. Or the most attack, I should say, at least.
But you never thought you'd say that sentence. Booty Bay Bodyguard is obviously the best.
Well, it's not me. Portugal here have indicated that Booty Bay Bodyguard is strictly better than...
Simply the best?
The Protector.
Yeah.
Job's done.
But the Meat Wagon does come down. I was somewhat maybe expecting that you hold it back here just for maximum Kangor's value. But having said that, you can't afford to be, you know, fatigue-oriented in this matchup. You just want to be going as quick as you can with the mechs, get them rolling.
The thing is, Lazy A needs to draw Kangor's Endless Army, which means he wants to be getting that egg from the Meat Wagon as quickly as possible. That means he's less likely to draw the eggs every turn. He's got Loot Hoarder in hand. And, you know, usually what ends up happening with Kangor's Endless Army in this deck is you get 1 Meat Wagon back, you get 1 egg back, and you get 1 8/8 back. And that's what Portugal are going to be playing to.
So it's mop-up time on the board now for Perna, just trying to fight back a little bit. And, you know, this Nightmare Amalgam is not doing a bad job of that, I guess. Getting a little bit of board presence rolling, just so they're not falling behind at the very least. That Spike Ridge Steed is definitely a little bit more to Portugal's liking. They just want all the magnetic cards, all the buff cards they can possibly find now to be throwing down on this egg and this Booty Bay Bodyguard.
Is it Booty Bay Bodyguard's time to shine in competitive Hearthstone? Well, no, because Brazil can just deal with it very easily with the Super Collider and the minion. But maybe it's better than True Silver Champion anyway.
It's not bad. It means the egg comes out, right?
Yeah, that's the advantage. It's Booty Bay, and hits the weapon in, does the Meat Wagon, summons the egg, hits the Amalgam in. Pan does then have all of his mana to spend, but what does the Odd Warrior really do with its mana? Nothing.
The alternatives could just be True Silver Champion on this turn, which is obviously worth considering to clear up the board. But I think you do want to be making sure that your minion dies on the following turn so that you can go for a Spike Ridge Steed. And this is a fine way of going about it, just to make sure that it very likely dies to either to either the Nightmare Amalgam or maybe the weapon hit. Although, having said that, if you did want to make sure that the egg was being summoned next turn, Booty Bay was the best way to go about that. Because now the Nightmare Amalgam could just sacrifice itself off to the Loot Hoarder.
I wonder.
It's true. I guess Portugal aren't in a major hurry. It's a really weird position. I should imagine that Perna will save this Omega Assembly and not play it until turn 10.
Oh yeah, not when you can get the hero power in. Maybe you play it before then anyway, but
There's no-
hero power now seems good.
There's no Geist in the Paladin deck, at least I'm pretty sure that no, there's not.
Ah, this is interesting to me. I would have expected that Perna wants to stop the egg from coming out on this turn. With no Owl, he doesn't have a punish for his opponent summoning the egg.
But Portugal has a reward now for when he does get the egg out. He's got Ziliax, which he can put straight on that egg immediately. Yeah, it can't go face this turn, but it gets the Divine Shield, it's a little bit harder to kill, and it's the upgrade ready for when it comes back later.
So we're probably not... yeah, I guess maybe Portugal weren't wanting to go Spike Ridge Steed straight away because it would mean summoning the egg on this turn, and the Spike Ridge Steeding it right away is too valuable to silence. So maybe we see sacrifice away the Meat Wagon, then you just play Booty Bay on this turn.
Oh, you prefer the Booty Bay?
Well, because if they play Ziliax or Spike Ridge Steed and they're met with silence, that's so awful.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It is.
They could go for Spike Rashid on the Loot Hoarder, which I might like a little bit more, because it's still consistent damage and it's less vulnerable to silence.
Move quickly.
Yeah, okay,
right.
I like this, I like this.
And there's no benefit to playing the Spike Rashid on the egg anyway. It's the magnetic upgrade you really want to be putting on the egg. This is a pretty nice way of consistently dealing that damage. Super Collider into the Loot Hoarder does not finish off the egg. However, with the double shield slam, it's still a little bit awkward, isn't it? Like
We're going to double shield slam an egg.
tank up, double shield slam
I
it.
do very, very, very much doubt that that's the play.
Tank up, shield slam it, hit the Loot Hoarder, and then shield slam again. It clears up the Loot Hoarder too, but then the Stegodon survives.
Yeah.
It's very awkward.
I just don't think you need to clear it up. You're only facing 4 damage here, right? You take it nice and slow. Follow up with the more defensive plays on the later turns, because you want to be setting up for a brawl anyway. This is the mark of good Odd Warrior play, is that you take the damage until it's too much to bear, because you have such great armor gain that you never need to go for cards like Shield Slam or Fiery War Axe, whatever small removal you have, until after you've gone for the brawl.
I must choose.
That was clearly a very hotly debated turn amongst the Brazilians.
I've noticed throughout the series, Brazil have been using the rope as much as they possibly can. They've been taking all of the time they can to think. It's important. It's their game to get through to BlizzCon.
That's very nice. Crystology. A pretty cool inclusion in this deck, because I was definitely anticipating when it first came out that it was much more of an aggro card. You just throw it in to draw some of your early 1-drops. However, being able to get the Bronze Gatekeeper, Stonehill Defenders, all that goodness is a great way to get consistent buffs.
Yeah, Meatwagon, if it's not been picked up yet, which is, again, a good way of tutoring out the egg. Crystology into Meatwagon into egg it's a little slower, but it gets you there. I really like how Lazy A is playing this. It's like you said, it's consistent damage that sort of doesn't quite warrant out the silence yet.
Yeah.
But sort of does, but sort of doesn't. It puts the Warrior in that awkward position.
Well, yeah, if we see double silence now for Perna, like imagining it was there from Lazy A's perspective, we would then probably have, in a later date, unless it's right at the bottom, a Valenier game, which is just Valenier to the face every single turn. You keep throwing down your minions. Valenier can just completely solo this game if it's not met with a silence immediately.
So, Super Collider into the egg deals 3 damage to the Loot Hoarder deals 4 damage to the egg. Dynamatic could clear up the Loot Hoarder, I guess. It won't touch the egg.
Light the fuses!
Yeah, it just starts clearing things up, doesn't it? It doesn't warrant a brawl quite yet, but you can't be tanking 7 a turn for the rest of the game. Especially as the damage will probably ramp up even more on the coming turn.
Do you think, at this point, Lazy A thinks to himself, alright, there's no silence, and just goes ham on this egg? Annoy Module plus Bronze Gatekeeper and smack Perna in the face for 6.
Yeah, the fact that you do still get back the buffs off of Kangor's Endless Army is definitely something that would sway him more to that school of thought. As we can clearly see, that's what he was going for. I was
50-50. He's hedging. He's going for the true silver and the one.
Oh, right. Were you expecting Bronze Gate?
Yeah, I was
okay.
all
okay.
in.
I was looking fairly heavily at Spike Rich Steed on that turn, because it still puts a good amount of damage on the board. It gives you an incredibly resilient board. Like,
on top of the Stegodon?
On top of the Stegodon, yes, sorry. Because you don't really want to be buffing the egg with any cards that aren't mechs, I think is what I'm starting to realize, because it's just too much piled on top of each other, for which the punish for silence is massive.
Sticking that Divine Shield again on the egg, though, it just makes it so awkward to deal with. Like, Brazil, what? They have to put Super Collider into the egg again? They're taking another 5 damage if they do that? Shield slams just aren't even going to get there. Like, tank up, hit the egg, then tank up, then double shield slam. Still leaves an 8-8 on the board.
We could just see an attack into the Stegodon, which would clear that up.
Yep.
Then you have a 5-attack minion on the board. You play Sunwalker Hero Power.
Okay. That seems okay. It's annoying that the egg sort of just solos the Sunwalker, but...
Yeah. I'm sure that there will have been some discussion, at least, maybe not recently, but at some point since the start of the game, from Brazil as to when do they play Azalina. Is that a card they can throw down at any point to maybe try and get their own Valanir as a particularly high-value card against a deck that has no silence?
True.
As Portugal do now pick it up, this is one of the most important cards in this matchup.
This would be a great Azalina, wouldn't it? This hand.
Yeah.
Some qualities, Pyromancer, Spike Steed, Valanir.
Really not bad.
Even a Stonehill Defender.
Out of my jungle!
No Tyrion.
Oh!
No Sunkeeper Tarum.
The Chain Gang Valanir synergy, though. Do you
That-
remember that in the even Paladin
That
days?
is much better than what I was saying. Yeah, let's go with that. So
That could be huge.
I guess Portugal now slam the Chusov, or like slam the Valanir as quickly as they can and hit it in.
Really? I don't think you need to be hasty with that.
If they hit the Bronze Gatekeeper or the Saronite Chain Gang, then they get the guaranteed continued value, even behind a silence.
It's true.
Because again, like Bronze hit Gatekeeper, play it on the egg, later on it comes back with the Endless Army with the buff.
I think they've got good stuff to do anyway on this turn, though, be it just Booty Bay, which doesn't play into Mind Control tech, or Spike Bridge Steed on the 1/4.
You really want to see him play this Booty Bay Bodyguard, don't you, Dark?
I don't know, it's just something to be thrown down. A 5-attack, 5-cost minion. It's Booty Bay Bodyguard has got a reputation for being one of the worst cards in Hearthstone, because in terms of fighting for board in tempo matchups, it's abysmal.
Yep.
It's just so bad. When you're just on the aggressive and your opponent doesn't really play good statted minions to fight for board, instead they play removal, it's fine.
Sure.
5-attack for 5 damage is a respectable amount of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, look at Ziliax, it's just a 3/2.
Yeah.
That silence must be tempting for Perno.
Like we were saying, though, you just take every possible opportunity you can to not play it.
Yeah.
If there's any alternate line of play, you go for it.
But he can't play the Azalina until he's played the silence. If he's even thinking about playing the Azalina, that is. His hand's pretty premium, I guess, at the moment. MC Tech, good. Shield Slam, good. Omega Assembly, good.
Yeah, finally going to be clearing up this board after a lot of damage being taken, or, sorry, I should say at least clearing up most of this board, hopefully not facing down an 8/8 Robosaur.
Even if it's just a Booty Bay Bodyguard that survives, which it is. It's the elite card. Yeah, time to shine. It still beats Fiery War Axe. Spike Ridge Steed that bad boy back up again.
And the kind of funny thing about this hand with the Valanir is, like you said, Saronite Chain Gang, you can get 2 Valanirs back to hand, so it's less vulnerable to silence. Bronze Gatekeeper, if you throw that down on a mech, you keep the buff with Kangor's Endless Army, so it's less vulnerable to silence. The Wild Pyromancer, even if that gets the buff, it could just be Pyromancer equality on the same turn to kill it off instantly and get the Valanir buff back onto another minion.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
So that this hand should be pretty silence-proof.
Silence-proof, yeah.
With the Valanir, which is huge. That's what you want it to be.
Oh, that's a big deal. I hadn't thought about the Pyromancer equality play, yeah. Do you think you just slam Valanir now? No harm in hero powering too.
I think so, yeah. You want to get that rolling for this boss.
Reporting for duty.
Spanish Steed's kind of fine as well. Like, this 7/10 is going to be pretty difficult for Brazil to deal with. And again, it's saying, do you have to silence this minion?
I guess if you go for Valanir and you get too clever with your plays and too fancy, then you just ignore the fact that they will have started to take back board.
Due to the fact that Bronze Keeper has nothing to magnetize onto, and then due to the fact that 3 mechs have already died, with no guarantee that it actually comes back from Kangor's Endless Army anyway, I think ideally Portugal will want to hit that buff on the Saronite or the Pyromancer. Well, ideally just the Saronite. 2 Ziliax from Brazil, though. It's not bad.
Yeah, good amount of stall, get yourself back a little bit of health.
A Llama Bot into Azalina, anyone?
I think Lazier will be more imagining a Mechathune coming out of that Llama Pot.
Bulldozer.
It's still just a miserable turn for Perna. Nothing gets the job done. Does he just go Ziliax on this turn for stall? Does he finally throw down the Owl?
No way. On a Booty Bay Bodyguard of all minions?
Wow.
That's 1 silence down. Wow. Pretty bad target for the 2. It was Booty Bay Bodyguard's time to shine, Derek. I mean, it was probably just Spike Steed's time to shine. But
Fun fact there, before the Booty Bay bodyguard was killed off, every minion on Lazy A's side of the board was either reporting for duty or reporting for booty.
So, Consecration Valenier still looking good from where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
It deals 6 damage to the face this turn, 7 damage to the face because the Silver Hand Recruit gets to attack.
Yeah, these are qualities like with a Pyro equality as well. I was definitely looking at just taking the slower Valenier trade, but I think Portugal, like I was saying at the start, they want to be making sure that their value is not slow accruing and fatigue based. It needs to be quick, constant pressure that they can always be keeping up at all points in the game.
But Perna does have a lot of defensive tools still. He still has that Ziliax. He has War Gear that can be played with the Ziliax.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's an 8 attack lifesteal minion for 10 mana with Rush. Does he have to play it now, though? He's down to 11 health. Things are starting to look a little bit scary.
It's just kind of the best minion he can play, because if he goes Baku, I think Portugal could probably quite happily ignore that and push face with their Valenier and then play whatever minion is buffed through Valenier.
What about a Llama-bot Glastonous?
Are you not looking at Ziliax War Gear on this turn? It's just a big minion.
It is. It just feels a little bit bad because you lose the Divine Shield on the 1/1. It's not really killing anything. Like, it's a great trade tool. It could be used to trade into an 8/8, for example.
This is, however, a slight mistake from Brazil. Portugal is running 1 Spellbreaker in the deck, and you want to play the War Gear first, then the Ziliax, because then if it's silenced, there's a 5/5, not a 3/2. Which, if there was silence, you would definitely throw it down on this minion. So I think just a slight magnetic missequencing there for Perna.
I'm trying to work out if there's any reason that they would have wanted to do it in that order. And
I think they'd just be identical.
I'm drawing a blank, yeah, you're right.
It's like, well, would you rather very big quote-unquote res the Ziliax or res this minion off of Kangor's Endless Army? But even then it would be the same because it keeps magnetic buffs, because it could be gone off of
Not if one of the minions had been buffed by a Valenier. Because in that case...
Yeah. But if it's not a silence on this turn, which we can clearly see Portugal does not have access to, it's probably a Pyromancer equality on this turn. Very possibly with a Loot Horner thrown into the mix as well. Oh, okay, if they want to spend the rest of it. I was thinking they want to maybe go Chain Gang on this turn after the attack with the Valenier.
They're going to get their hand down to just the Salamite Chain Gangs before they hit this Valenier in.
Yeah, they really want to do it that way, don't they?
Unless the Signbeak Owl gets played now, in which case they'll just go ahead and attack the Valenier whenever they want.
Oh, yeah. Once the second Owl's played, they just have an absolute fiesta with this Valenier.
So Brazil will have to hold on to this Owl.
I wonder.
Azalina looking really bad now compared to earlier. Double Shield Slam, though, so Perna still has tools to deal with some big things. They don't have the armor to deal with the big things.
And I really like that they saved back the Shield Slams, because there was one turn in particular where they were really considering throwing it down as quick as possible. But we can
this is it.
Clearly see it's worked out nicely for them.
It's hand dumping time for Portugal, I think, as they can just buff up this egg as much as they want.
So I imagine they go for this and get the Garanite Chain Gang buff, It is worth pointing out, however, you need a minion in hand for the Chain Gangs to buff when he dies.
So they will need to draw another minion.
Yes, because obviously they can't play all their minions this turn, but Annoyer Module, Gatekeeper, Loot Board this turn to set up for the Chain Gang Bufferoonie next turn. Feels good to me.
Turned out, Salamite Chain Gang from that Stonehill Defender, it's pretty good.
Yeah. That really was the pick. And oh man, this just takes me back to the glory days of when even Paladin was actually a good deck.
So there's a Pyromancer they can draw, there's a Spellbreaker they can draw.
There's like another Gatekeeper they can draw.
2 War Gears, which I don't think we've seen either of. So yeah, there's a lot of minions. There's a Sunky Patarum. And if they don't draw one of those, they're drawing either Uther of the Ebon Blade, great, or Kangor's Endless Army, great.
It is looking mighty good here for Lazy, I think, as we expected from the start.
Yeah.
While you can just run out of stuff to do, which, you know, Lazier's hand has not been particularly outstanding, I would say. They've just had what seemed like a decent hand throughout. They got the meat wagon, which is a nice way to get things rolling.
Oh no. Silence happens, but now these Saronite chain gangs, assuming a minion gets drawn, go out of control. Again, they want to draw a minion because if the warrior can deal with both Saronites, then the Valanir, and they can ooze the weapon, then that's it. No more Valanir. But they get 2 attempts to draw a minion.
So a big push here just to lock up the board for Perna. And there is the minion.
Do they want to equality and get rid of the Baku?
They probably do, actually, don't they? They're not really going to see anything bigger for the rest of the game.
But if, yeah, and they have to play the Saronite as well. If they didn't play the Saronite, Azalina could be played. Brazil could get their own Saronite with Valanir.
Well, that's a nice pickup as well. That means there's not the ability to kill off the chain gangs on board with the... oh, no, sorry, there is. Yeah, they have plus attack from the Valanir. I was thinking of an even Kellerset style buff.
All right.
It's not often you see chain gangs with more attack than health. This does take you back.
Gonna just go face with the True Silver Champion.
Well, then, yeah, they're never playing the chain... Sorry, they're never playing the weapon for the rest of the game because they'll have so many Valanirs that they need to be playing.
Yep.
So I like just going face because the board gets cleared up anyway.
Brazil are going to take 6 from this attack though. So Perna going down to 6. And 10 covers 10. The weapon could go down to 6 again next turn. The Valanirs are going to be equaling how much armor Perna can gain each turn.
But the buffs on the minions will be more than good enough to get through the extra damage if Lazy A can find those minions. Because it's not like Valanir is endless value, like Kangor's Endless Army. It's only as good for as many minions as you have in deck.
I think Kangor's a bit of a scam artist, a bit of a con artist.
I think this talk has already been made on cast.
Oh.
I'm just gonna nip this in the bud right now before
Nip this bud in the
nip this bud in the bud.
Imagine if Perna has Alina'd this. Because then Lazy A would have to play it, and then Perna would just play his and silence it. He doesn't know it's a Spellbreaker, so he's not going to. But that would be insane.
Yeah, he doesn't really want to get rid of all those good cards he has
No.
lying about in hand.
He's been holding on to these shield slams for such a long time, with good reason. And actually, it's not great for Portugal, is it? Like, okay, they play Spellbreaker, it gets shield slammed, they end up with Valanir again. They play Bronze Gatekeeper, it gets shield slammed.
Basically, they need Kangors kind of soon.
Yes.
Because while these Valanirs have, they can solo this matchup, and they may still do that because it's a lot of minion removal that will be done by the weapon. It is kind of slow.
It's 12-7.
This 12-7 can be dealt with.
Your magic shall not save you.
Have you ever had 3 Valanirs on the go before?
I've not. I can only juggle with 2.
Because obviously, if you hit a Saronite and hit the other Saronite, actually you end up with 4 if you do that. Because each Saronite doubles your Valanirs.
Not even going to consider that one. Yeah, there was no real consideration to go for the Bronze Gatekeeper there because you need to have a minion to buff. But there, with the pickup of Faceless Manipulator, Perna can make a pretty impressive play onto the board here.
This is just insane. Okay. Wind it back just a little bit. Maybe he wants to Faceless one of the eggs that's been buffed by a Zilliax and buffed by an Annoying module,
Possibly.
etc.
But if Kangor's Endless Army is drawn in the next few turns, I think Brazil lose anyway, and I think they know that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Reckless Flurry on its own doesn't do the job because there's the dinosaurs hidden inside as well. I guess Shield Slam, Reckless Flurry is their trump card that they're hoping for. Even then, the eggs both have Divine Shield, I believe.
They do.
Your magic shall not save you.
Say goodbye to your Super Collider, Perna.
Yeah.
This is slightly better, because now if Kangor's on Asami played, he can use the minions to clear up the Divine Shield, and then Reckless Flurry to clear up the board.
Just going on the aggressive here are Brazil, as right they should. I think holding back their Shield Slam wasn't actually much of a consideration, because all these minions on board are what's really doing the work. Consecration off the top doesn't even kill the Spellbreaker.
I can't believe it. Like, after all of this, it looks like Perna is going to end up winning this game potentially.
Wait, so Bronze Gatekeeper comes down now, gets Shield Slammed.
Yep.
Consecration could come first. Then it would be 1 damage off lethal with a Super Collider.
Is there any clever way they can do this? Like, could they Shield Slam their own Spellbreaker to get the weapon or something crazy like that? Yeah, they can Shield Slam the Bronze Gatekeeper, attack with the minions, Reckless Flurry to get the Valanir, and hit face for lethal.
That is sick. I think that's the play, isn't it?
It is. It's just lethal that way. Oh my goodness.
They Shield Slam, they attack face with everything, they get the weapon immediately.
Yeah. Perna is
They've
cheering.
seen it.
He's seen the line. There's the Shield
My
Slam.
goodness.
They've done it with their Faceless Manipulator, taking away the Valanir, well, not taking away, but copying the Valanir. And it has to be said, Portugal failing to draw Kangor's Endless Army, which is one of the big problems with this deck. A little bit like the Death Knights. It's the only way to win a lot of the time if you actually draw the key card. Portugal have failed to do so, and as a result, Brazil will be going to BlizzCon after their 6-0 undefeated journey in the Swiss of the Hearthstone Global Games. They've made it through the playoffs, and I think this is probably the team that deserve it the most, Derek.
And I've just been pretty impressed with their play throughout this game. They were saying yesterday that when they last played against Chile, that they thought, you know, they maybe need to tighten up their play a little bit. A couple of mistakes were made here and there. This just felt like very solid Hearthstone. Those owls in particular, which I was talking about, you need to be very careful about how you use them. I think it was a good balance being found there for Brazil, where they were using them actually quite aggressively, just to fight for board control, rather than to deny infinite value with Valanir, to which we were alluding. They realized that you actually just need to play aggressively for the board, hope they don't draw Kangors, and that came perfectly into effect.
It's such an unexpected end to the game. I think more than ever this time, I mean it. Like, well played, Brazil. Good job. Well-deserved victory. Let's take a look at the matchup that we just watched one final time, as Brazil managed to win 3-1 against Portugal, earning their spot, booking their ticket to California to go to BlizzCon.
And I'm just so happy that Brazil have made it. They've been such a passionate team throughout the whole Global Games. It will be a repeat trip to California for Race, who was there for the Summer Championships. He is just a lovely, lovely man to hang out with. Very good at table tennis, as I found out, much to my chagrin. And he can show the rest of his Brazilian teammates all around Brazil, as they do have their ticket through to BlizzCon.
And I have to admit, seeing the excitement on Perna's face when he got that win, it just goes to show how important that win was for them. Hearthstone Global Games is a big tournament for every single player taking part, and it's a big deal being able to compete at the highest level at the most exciting Blizzard event of the year.
Commiserations do have to go out for Portugal, because they gave it their all. Just look at this game. It was such a cool game that was, well, one Moonfire away from just being lethal in one massive surprise turn through Malagos, Floop, Swipe, Moonfire. They nearly got there, but a very surprising indeed Charged Devilsaur managed to pull things around for Brazil and get the lethal.
Yeah, it was... We kind of both missed that for a second there, because we're not really that used to the Charged Devilsaur tech that's been put into Death Rattle Hunter. We've seen it a few times in the last couple of weeks, but clearly Ray's very happy about it here. Moving on to game number 2, which was the weird one, a lot shorter than we expected it. The double Benedictus Priest. Turned out Brazil never actually drew theirs, and it didn't matter. They were able to take the win without it.
Yeah, just a pretty well-played game overall. We were anticipating that maybe there can be an equilibrium state reached where it goes through to Fatigue and Benedictus comes into play, but it turns out it's pretty much just regular Control Priest and Win and Alexstrasza turn out to be the most important cards, and it was just well played for by Brazil.
Then there was the Odd Paladin versus the Control Warlock, and we've seen this matchup a few times in the last couple of weeks. It is one of the hardest matchups, I think, for the Odd Paladin. There are so many board clears in the Warlock deck. Then there was this. The Booty Bay Bodyguard.
Yeah, a good effort there for Lazier. Maybe he was a little bit too liberal with some of his minions, throwing down too many buffs, so he was too weak to silence. I'm not entirely sure, but this is kind of the weakness of the deck, considering it runs such little card draw. A lot of your deck doesn't do all that much. You really are so reliant on Uther or Kangors, both of which were in the bottom 5 cards, as lethal was found in the end for Brazil.
Yep, Faceless Manipulator doing overtime there. But there you go, the fist pumps from Perna tell the full story. For the next few minutes, or for the next few moments, we were seeing how happy he was. There it is again. And again, just such a well-deserved victory. Such a great journey from that team through the Hearthstone Global Games. I'm very excited to see how they can do at BlizzCon. But before we do, let's have a chat with them and see how they're feeling right now. Race is on the line. Race, you've done it. You've qualified. Can you hear me? Just going to check now. No, I didn't think he could hear me. He wasn't reacting in any way whatsoever. It was pretty quick to work that one out, so we'll just get that issue sorted over the next few seconds. But yeah, that does mean there is only one spot left at BlizzCon. It's going to be Norway or Ukraine. Now, they have played against each other once last week already, and Norway did win that one. They won some very unfavored matchups. Let's take one last look at this bracket, though, before we get too deep into Norway versus Ukraine. There you go. Spain and Brazil are the victors of Group A, knocking out Portugal and Chile. And is this what you'd have expected from this group, Derek?
Yes, it was. While I have great respect for Portugal and Chile, I think Portugal in particular were showing a very good amount of potential going into this tournament. I, maybe didn't agree with all of Chile's play yesterday with some somewhat out there lines and decks that they were bringing. Portugal, I think, were playing some pretty consistently solid Hearthstone throughout here in the global games, and it's just unfortunate they had to be put into against the titans that are Brazil and Spain.
Let's take one last look at HGG Cheer before we get ready for the last game. You can spend bits here in Play Hearthstone in order to earn these amazing rewards you can see on the screen. 2,500 bits will earn you everything. You can use it to cheer on a team of your choice. And if we take a look at the next page, this is how all of the countries are doing so far. Spain want to call the ref, but otherwise this is about what you're expecting. And the players in each team do earn a share of the revenue from the bits that is donated to them. So it helps out the players, it helps out you by getting the cool packs and the emotes, it helps everyone.
Yep, just a very nice initiative to show a bit of your appreciation to whichever team you are rooting for, despite the fact that now almost half, I believe 7 of the top 16 have been eliminated after we find out whether Ukraine or Norway will be going through. You can still choose a backup if you want, of who you want to be winning the top 8 finals at BlizzCon.
As I said a moment ago, there's one game left today. Just before we go to that, I just want to say goodbye, because I'm leaving Raven and yourself for this. But I think it's nice to say for Lorinda and Gaskin and Soto as well. We've all had a great time casting the Hearthstone Global Games. And certainly going to miss it. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed putting it on. But now, Derek, Raven, I'm going to leave it to you. Norway versus Ukraine coming right up.